the Overman Warrior Podcast.
Hi, it's Rich Hoffman here. I have to talk about something that's kind of important. I think it has an element that spans many different occupational trajectories. And we're talking about why things cost so much and kind of the state of workplaces these days and kind of where they're at. So the question came up, why does the Cincinnati Bridge cost so much to build? When you used to build bridges all the time, why does everything cost so much? And what's the hidden cost of administrative burdens that we have these days? And it doesn't matter what your field of endeavor is, whether you're building bridges or you're building cars. Why do things cost so much? Why is everything so expensive? Well, I can tell you, these days, the administrative burden, this is the kind of experts, and I saw this when I was very young, and I've always said it. I told my kids this when they were growing up. The hidden cost of the college experience. When you train people to be highly educated, very specific in the information they learn, and then they have to justify themselves in the future, even if they're ineffective in their jobs. What you have now, why things are so expensive, is you have a lot of administrative people who are paid to essentially, the term I use for is, organizations are burdened by having to train people who are blind to see. It costs a lot of money to teach blind people to see. And I mean that by saying, I often use the metaphor of people who are heavily trained to be administrators. They don't have a lot of real world experience. I tend to like people who learn through the school of hard knocks, who go out and learn how to change an engine in their backyard using a hoist and a tree on a tree branch to pull the engine out of a car or put it back in, without all the fancy tools that you can go down to Harbor Freight and pick up. I tend to respect people who learn the hard way and work very hard to be very creative and MacGyver their way through life. Using a pack of gum, for instance, to be an adhesive. If you've got to get something fixed or put back together again. I like innovation that is driven by hard-learned skills that were acquired through trouble and tough times. I recently talked about, I was on a trip with our RV and we blew a tire, and my wife was really kind of shocked that I changed the whole thing in 20 minutes. I went back, jacked up the whole rig, had the old tire off, put the new tire on in 20 minutes. She hardly got out of the passenger seat. And this is us pulling a trailer, a very remote area, far away from home. We weren't close to anything, even remotely close to anywhere to get any help. It's not like you could have called AAA and had them come out and pick you up within an hour. I had us back on the road and at a local McDonald's within 22 minutes of having a major blowout on our camper in a very, very far-flung area. And she's known me. We've been married for 38 years, so she's known me for a long time, and I fix a lot of things. And I learned how to fix a lot of things because I've done a lot of things in life. And I've worked very hard, way late into the night, to put two things together to make something new. And I tend to respect people who acquire that kind of information and who hold their cool under pressure and can fix just about anything under any circumstance. I don't have a lot of tolerance for people who are very powder puff, who need handrails to go downstairs without a flashlight. They're blind because they've been trained to not see how to fix things. They call AAA every time they have a blown tire. Or have a hard time figuring out how to make a wrench out of something that's, whatever's in the toolbox that's convenient. I respect people who can make something out of nothing most of the time and do it gracefully and under great pressure. I don't respect people who have to be handheld because they train themselves to be soft and not very creative, and you have to really walk them through things because they aren't very skilled. But they want to have great power. So through manipulation and gaining leverage over a situation because they may have acquired more money or financial ability, so they can say, I'm blind, I need you to walk me downstairs. I don't know how to turn the light on. I need you to hold the flashlight to walk me down the stairs. And then they end up becoming huge time sucks. I call those people time eaters. I've referred to them often. They're people who are like, hey, I don't know how to do something because I didn't train my life to be that way. I need you to waste all your time on me. That's where your cost is. And that's why bridges cost so much. That's why highways cost so much. That's why that's the hidden cost and why everything is so expensive now. That's why gas speculation, why gas prices are so high at the pumps, because they see a war, and that traditionally means they can jack up their prices on barrels of oil and their cost of refinement, and they can really try to get a lot of artificial profit where they don't really deserve it off gas prices just because they want to suck it off the economy because they think some conflict in Iran is going to justify their jacking it up when they really didn't jack it up, didn't deserve to be. And the cost of gas, that's where you have a lot of those parasites that jack up costs because they have to pay for their own lofty paychecks when they don't really have any real skill and they think everybody's as dumb as they are. And when the price of oil didn't really exceed $100 per barrel, how do you justify $4.20 at the gas pump in the Midwest? You can't, because but they jack up the cost because they think people are too stupid to ask the next layer question. It's just like, why do so many people not know how to walk down the stairs without holding on to the handrail, even if it's in the dark? They have to have someone walk with them with a flashlight so they can see where the little feet are going, because they don't have enough intuition, because they lack the skills. They didn't develop them in themselves. And that's why they cost so much money. You find that among the consulting class a lot. They are very expensive because they are essentially blind people that need you to spend a lot of your time helping them see the skills they didn't acquire on their own because they never learned to change engines in their cars in the backyard or change their own tires. I know people, even this modern age, that still can't change a tire. They don't even know how to put air in their tires. And those people are expensive because they can't do anything for themselves. They're complete parasites that you have to throw a lot of money in their direction because they can't do for themselves. They can't do anything for themselves. And those are expensive people. Democrats tend to be those kinds of people. They need government services. They need the government to look out for them. They need someone to come knock on their door and wake them up so they can go to work. They're not self-driven, and those people are expensive. And when they can't figure out how to solve their own problems and someone has to come do it for them, they are expensive. And when you hire consultants that really don't know, they went and studied a lot of administrative functions. They know how to put together a spreadsheet with a lot of fancy numbers on it, but they don't know how to apply them to actual people. They don't know how to look someone in the eye and say, can you do this? And assess whether they can or not. Or train people to do it. They're completely helpless because they themselves are helpless, so they assume everybody else in the world is too. And their assumptions cost a lot of money. They drag a lot of money off the top because they're so helpless and blind. And it's like I say, the people in life who are like that, they may gain leverage in a situation because they gain some sort of financial reason, because they were more ruthless than nicer people who didn't go for the jugular. And they might become as administrators over other people who are too nice to take the power for themselves. And so they're always demanding time. And I call those people time suckers. They're the ones that call you up for a conference call and they want to waste a half hour of your time when you should be reading a book or doing something smarter. They waste time because they're time eaters, because they can't see. They're the people that say, I got to go downstairs. I don't know how to turn the light on. And I need someone to put my hand on the handrail so I can walk down carefully. And I need someone to walk with me to flash the flashlight where my feet are so I don't trip. Because they're so unskilled that's how they deal with everything in life. And when they're on the side of the road and they're driving on a trip and their RV blows a tire in the middle of nowhere, what do? They call AAA and wait an hour and a half for someone to come get them and change their tire for them. I go back and change the tire, and I did it in 20 minutes, and I still had time to have a snack in the RV. Then we went down the road, and within 22 minutes, we were at McDonald's getting lunch. Back on the road without hardly breaking a sweat. And I tend to respect people who think on their feet, solve problems on the fly, and are very personally resourceful. And I plan for people to be able to walk down the stairs on their own without a flashlight. And I expect people to be able to see for themselves. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in those positions. But there are a lot of people who end up in those positions in administrative roles in large organizations especially, who can't see. They're blind, functionally blind, because they spent their whole life training to be blind administrators. And they, because of the nature of society and the way it's structured, they gain leverage so they can command people around to suit their blindness. And you have to cater to their whims. And I call them time eaters, and they're a detriment to any kind of organization. They end up soaking up a lot of time and money because they're so blind. And it's really irritating to cater to their blindness. And that's why when you look around, you say, why do bridges cost so much? Why can't we make roads anymore for a decent cost? Why are contracts with government employees so outrageous? Why do teachers cost so much? Because you're paying a lot of people who are technically blind. You're showing them how to see, and you have to throw a lot of money at them to get them to see anything. Because they take time. They're time wasters. Their time sucks. They soak up time. They want countless conference calls to help walk them through all the hardships of life because they can't see, because they didn't train themselves to do anything useful. They're parasites off everybody else, and so they got to pull everybody in to help them see what's obvious to everybody else. And there are pains in the neck, and they cost a lot of money wherever they're at. And that's why things ultimately cost so much money as they do. And that's why you have speculators out there jacking up gas prices every time you turn around, because they're executives. They're worthless in their positions, and every excuse they get, even if it's some conflict overseas, hey, let's jack up price so we can justify our existence. They do it. And they get away with it because people think they're smart, and they're really not very smart because they've been put in executive positions blind as can be, when they need a lot of people to handhold them through life, to walk them through all those conference calls, because they can't see the obvious. They can't see the forest for the trees. And they need a lot of help getting there because they're dead blind and need someone to walk them through everything in life. And that's expensive. That's why ultimately they got to pass their costs of blindness off on other people. And that's why gas prices end up high, because they're full of executives that take advantage of every geopolitical circumstance in order to price gouge the consumer. And that's not going to work in this case, because the Strait of Hormuz was never really shut down. It was a scam from the outset, and they got caught jacking prices up when they should never have. And they harmed the economy in ways that were detrimental to everybody. And that's one of the elements that's going on, why high prices are the way they are, is because you have administrative positions that are filled with a bunch of blind pinheads that were trained in college to not see and do for themselves, and they are technically incapable of innovation and understanding the basics of life because they didn't learn them. They learned all the wrong things, and they cost a lot of money to show them as their detriments and drags on every system that they're a part of. And that's ultimately why prices are so high. And to bring prices down, you got to get those people out of the way. They're detriments. Too many consultants, too many pinheaded executives, too many people who want to be CEOs without actually bringing any real value to things, because they just loot off a system and price gouge to justify their own blindness. And it's pretty irritating to deal with. Anyway, Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, which talks extensively about all those elements. People would do a lot better for themselves if they did read it. Anyway, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day. See you later.
In the age of disclosure, you must understand the politics of heaven. Coming soon. Coming soon, The Politics of Heaven in 2027. A treasure hunt through heaven and all human history.